Right, we've now roped in legal analyst who's the managing director of Donda Attorneys. That's Melusi Xulu. Melusi, thank you so much for your time and good afternoon to you. Before the court case resumes, I want us to just unpack a number of things that we are seeing now. In a case like this, where a dependent, in this case the 24-year-old Tamara Silinda, and her mother, in fact, is claiming living and also education expenses. How does a court balance that against the rights of a surviving spouse to receive the pension payout, over 44 million rands to be exact?
Good afternoon to you, Nati, and to the viewers at home. Thank you for having me once again. It's very simple, Nati. What is important is it must be proven that you are a dependent. You are dependent on the person who has died, who has left money in the pension fund or in a fund. So if you go to section 37, paragraph C, capital letter paragraph C, subsection 1, it outlines what must happen when there's a pension fund payout. Now, if there is a designated person who's been stated that she or he would be benefiting, it doesn't matter if she is the only one or he's the only one that has been nominated. As long as they are dependents as well, they must also be considered. So the board of directors of the fund will have to consider the dependents as well, and they'll have to make a payment that is equitable based on their discretion. So it's got nothing to do with the wishes of the deceased, but it has everything to do about fairness. So fairness is a very important part when this process is happening on that.
I'm going to come back, Melusi, to section 37C that you've just mentioned, but I want to touch on this. Many South Africans are still unclear about when a customary marriage is legally valid. Based on the Act and, case law, could you walk us through the minimum requirements at least, for a valid customary marriage? Because Tamara is also claiming that her mother is still, in fact, married to the late Mabuza.
The Recognition of Customary Marriages Act is a 1998 Act. Once again, I think it first started being introduced into the public in 2000, November to be exact. So what it simply says is, one, there must be the fact that you are above the age of 18. If not above the age of 18, there must be a parental consent for you to get married. So if you're above the age of 18, you consent, and then there's a process of negotiations and celebrations, which would obviously mean the process of lobola, that can be stated to be a customary marriage based on section 3 of the act that I'm mentioning. However, the tricky part on that is that, historically in our culture, there's nothing that is deemed as divorce. Should it happen that the wife wants to leave, she will not necessarily have any divorce order historically and traditionally. So section 8 comes with a solution, because it says there must be a divorce order for a customary marriage to end. Now, with Tamara, I think her second name is Ruth. With Ruth, in her case, the fact is, if one, we do have evidence that she was married, then the second thing that must happen is there must have been a divorce order. If not, then she's obviously still married or was married to the deceased, which is Mabuza. So I think that the question is, was there a customary marriage? That's the first question. And the second question is, was there a divorce order? And if not, then she is the wife of the former deputy president.
Let's go back now to Tamara, because we also seeing that her siblings are also supporting her. How does the law then define a dependent in terms of this section 37C? And what kind of evidence does then a child or other dependents, in fact, need to show to be considered?
Yes. Well, obviously, you must just prove that you've been dependent on the deceased. You must prove that for living expenses, he or she was the one who was also assisting you. I think when we go down to the numbers with the applicant in this case, she stated that she's at UCT. I think she's a first year as a medical student. And I think the fees are 127,000 per annum. and her monthly expenses are 40,000 rand. So all she needs to prove is, whilst my father was alive, this is how much he gave me. This is how he paid for my school fees, and this is how he assisted me. You can even include entertainment for that matter, and then they'll be able to give an equitable payout to you. But remember, I believe that he has about 7 known children. They also have to show the same thing that Tamara is doing, to show that they must also be supported. And then if the 44.7 million needs to be paid out to Miss Mnisi, obviously the board of directors has to consider the 7 dependents. I don't know why though there was a rush to pay out if the proper investigation was not done. Not that I'm saying an investigation was not done,
Yeah.
but if you look at the act, if you go to section 37, specifically section 1, paragraph small letter B and paragraph A, which is a capital letter A, it says the board of directors, once they've investigated that there is a dependent and there is a member that has been designated, they have a discretion to decide on the payout in an equitable manner. So there are 7 or so dependents, including the alleged former customary wife. So they must decide to pay.
Yeah, I think it becomes even more interesting, the fact that the 44.7 million rand was a personal investment and not the entire estate. So I would imagine we have to monitor this very, very closely. But Melusi, thank you so much for your time and, of course, unpacking all of this for us. That is legal analyst Melusi Xulu there for us.